Bows have been everywhere in fashion in the last couple years. It's a trend that I think is going to define the 2020s, and I'm so here for it because they're so cute. I love simple trends like this because they're super easy to incorporate into your own style and they're easy to DIY. Instead of buying a whole new article of clothing or a hair accessory, you can simply just make it at home. Go to a Michael's craft store, buy ribbon, buy yarn, and make it yourself. So today I'm going to teach you guys how to make this bow tie that you can wear just like I am here today, or you can wear up in your hair. It's really up to you. I actually made this bow tie for my Momo cosplay from Don. I actually made her whole pink v-neck sweater from an old sweater that I had in my closet. So if you want to check out how I made that, I'll link that video in the card up here or in the description below. Anyways, let's get started and make this cute little bow. Here I have all the materials that you'll need for this project. The first one being obviously your knitting needles. These are 3.5mm needles or a US 4. You can use either circular needles or double pointed needles, but for the very beginning and the end of this project, you'll need to have needles that are either one of those. I also have scissors and a darning needle, and then of course you'll also need your yarn. So here I have Drops Merino Extra Fine. This is in the color Crimson Red. This is a little bit less than a 50-gram ball of yarn, but this should be more than enough for the project. So this is a great scrap yarn project. And then I also have the Barocco Ariel in the color Cherry. This is a merino, and I'm going to pair these two together to kind of give it a fluffy texture. Now, you don't have to use two yarns. You could literally just use this Drops yarn or any other yarn that you have. I'm specifically using a DK weight yarn or this kind of like medium thickness of yarn. If you want to make a bigger bow, you can always just increase the weight of your yarn and also your needle. The same steps will apply. So the first thing you'll do is you'll have to create a slip knot. For this project, you'll want to cast on 3 stitches. So our tail doesn't need to be too long, but you do want to leave some room at the end of your slip knot to cast on those stitches. To create a slip knot, what I like to do is I like to take the tail of my yarn and cross it over the front of the yarn that's connected to my ball. I usually pinch this section here where they meet, and then I'll take this loop and fold it over itself on the part that is connected to the ball. And then I'll grab that piece of string and pull it tight so that you have your little slip knot. I'll show it one more time, but a little bit closer here. So you just take the end that is the tail, and you'll cross it over the end that's connected to the ball. Hold at the intersection, take the loop, fold it down so that it's on top of the part that's connected to the ball, and then just pull that through, and then you can tighten it. And you tighten it pulling the part that's connected to the ball. So then you have this little slip knot. So now that I have my slip knot, I'll take my knitting needle and just insert that through the loop. And now I'm going to do a long tail cast on. So to do a long tail cast on, you'll need to take the yarn that's connected to your ball and the tail end of your yarn. What I like to do is I like to make my fingers into almost like you're going to pinch something, this like V shape. So the bottom one here is the tail end of the yarn, and then the top end here is the end that's connected to the balls. I'm going to take my fingers and I take my pointer finger and loop it under the one that's connected to the balls, and then I take my thumb and I go on top for the one that is the tail. So you're kind of like stretching these two out here to make this V shape. So you're basically going on the inside and stretching it like that. Now to cast on, I'll do this very slowly. Basically, you're going to take the needle and loop it under the yarn that's around your thumb. So you're going to go under it. And then we're going to hook the yarn that's connected to the 2 balls that I have. In this case, it's the one that's on my pointer finger. And we're going to hook it like that. And then you just pull it a little bit so it's nice and taut. Again, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to hook under and then grab this yarn back here and go through the loop that's on your thumb and then pull it tight like that. Okay, now that we have cast it on, I'm actually going to take these 3 stitches and pull them through my needle until I get to the other side. So I just slip it through like that. And now we're ready to knit the first 3 stitches. So I'm going to go in here and knit the first 3 stitches on my needle. And doing that initial slide down my needles helps create this little bump here. This is actually what an I-cord edge usually looks like, but I like to do this to make it look a little bit neater at the end. So now I'm going to flip it over and do a row of purl stitches since this will be the back of the bow. Okay, now that those 3 stitches are done, I'm going to flip it to the other side. Okay, so here is the right side. And now we're going to do our first row of increases. Now in knitting, there are 2 types of increases. You have left-leaning increases that lean this way, and right-leaning increases that lean this way. And because this is a bow and we're trying to kind of expand out a little bit, make our bow a little bit thicker, we're going to, on the right side, do a left-leaning increase, and then on the left side, do a right-leaning increase. So in the first stitch, you're going to just knit that as normal. And now you're going to take, there should be this little bar between your stitches, and it looks a little bit like this right here, this bar. And you're going to take your left needle and insert into that bar like this. And this is going to be where your left-leaning increase lies. So to create that stitch, you're going to want to knit through the back loop. So rather than going through the front like this, how you would normally make a knit stitch, you're actually going to go down, but in the back. So in the back here, just like that. And then same thing as you would normally do with a knit stitch, you will take your yarn counterclockwise and pull it through the back of this loop. And that's how you create a left-leaning increase. You're now going to knit your middle stitch. And now again, we've reached this bar that's between the last stitch and your middle stitch. But now we're going to make a right leaning increase. So instead of going in the front, we're actually going to go through the back of this bar, just like that. And this one you can knit normally. So sometimes I like to loosen it a little bit, but you'll go through it like you normally would for a knit stitch. And then you'll just knit your last stitch. And it should look like that. And as you can see, we're already kind of getting that triangular pointed tip. And this will be the end of our bow. Now, flip your work over. At this point, you should have 5 stitches on your needle, so just double check that you have the 5. And now you're just going to purl on the wrong side row, and you're just going to do just normal purling here. Just like that. Now flip it over to the other side. You'll still have 5 stitches. On this row, you'll just do your normal knit stitches. Like that. Then you're going to do one more row of purls. And then turn it towards the front. If you like this width for the bow, you can just leave it like this and continue doing knit and purl stitches until you get to the length that you want. Then you can skip to the end that specifies how to do the decreases and make this point. But for mine, I'm going to do one more row of increases. So if you want one that's a little bit thicker, you'll want to do additional increases. So here, again, I'm going to knit the first stitch. And then I'll find the bar. So here you can see the bar here. And I'm going to insert my left needle into it through the front. Then through the back loop, I'll insert my yarn and knit the stitch. I'll knit all the way till the end of the row until there's 1 stitch left. And then this one I'll make my make one right increase. So here again is the bar, but rather than going to the front, I'm going to go through the back, just like that. And you can tell this is correct because it's kind of like this V here, and then there's this little loop that's pulling it. I'm going to loosen the stitch a little bit, hold it open, my thumb, and then knit it normally. And then knit the last stitch. This is what it looks like. Now you're just going to repeat purl and knit stitches until you get the length that you want. If you want to make more increased rows, you just do the same thing of knitting one, make one left, knit until the end, and when there's one stitch left on your needles, do a make one right, increase, and then knit the final stitch. And that's how you create this kind of taper here. But for me, I think I'm happy with the width of this bow, so I'm just going to keep knitting until I get a good length that I want, and I'm going to knit a couple more rows and show you guys what it looks like. I did a couple more rows of just stockinette stitch. As you can see, we're getting this nice long piece of fabric now. Now mine's curling a little bit, but I'm going to block mine at the end, which basically just means I'm going to wash it and let it dry flat so that it won't roll up on the sides. So if yours is doing that too, especially if you're using any animal fibers, washing it will really help. If you're using acrylic yarn, I recommend steam blocking. I've heard that works as a way to help any rolling. But really, I've just been sitting here and going back and forth with my purl and knit rows. There's really nothing special about this. So I recommend working your bow to however long you want it to be. I'm going to do the same, and then I'll come back and show you guys how to do the decreases and make this little point at the end. Okay, so I now have a very, very long ribbon, basically. So now we're going to work on the couple decreases and binding off. So to do that, you're going to want to start on your right side row. So this is the row that you normally knit, and we're going to do our first decreases. Now, just like how there's right and left leaning increases, there are also right and left leaning decreases. So in this case, we're going to want to do a right leaning increase on the right side and a left leaning increase on the left side. So to do that, for the first decrease, you're going to want to slip your first loop knitwise, so that means going underneath this way and transferring it to your right needle. You're going to do the same for the next one so that you have both slipped onto the right needle. And then you're going to transfer them back onto the left side, and that just makes these two face the right direction, so that way when we knit them together, it'll be a right leaning decrease. So now you're going to take your needle, you're going to insert through the back of both loops. So here's the first one and the second one, and you're going to go through the top like that, and then you're going to knit both. Just knit both like that. And then slip off. Now you're just going to knit the rest of the stitches until there are two left. And then for these two, you're just gonna do knit through both of them. So you're basically gonna insert your needle through both loops and then just knit like you would normally do and come out on the other side just like that. So you can see this one is a right leaning decrease and this one is a left leaning decrease. Now I'm just going to do one row of purl. Oops. Turn it back to the right side, do a row of just regular knit. Do one more row of purl. And then if we go back to the right side, we'll do one more row of decreases to get to 3 loops. So we're going to do the same thing. Slip the first loop knitwise, slip the second loop knitwise, then transfer both of the loops back onto the left needle and through the back loop of both, you're going to knit. I think mine got caught a little bit, so I'm going to do it again. Just going through the back loops and slipping off. Going to knit this middle stitch, and then for these last two, I'm going to insert my needle and do a normal knit stitch. Just like that. Now to finish this off, I'm going to do an I-cord edge just for these last ones to make it come to a point, similarly to how we did for this end. So just like we did at the beginning, you're going to take your work and you're going to slip it down to the other side of your needle. Just like that. So now it's on the opposite side. My working yarn is on the left side. That's how it should be. And then I'm just going to knit across these 3 and bind off at the same time. So there's 1, knitting second one, and then to bind off, I'm going to take this first loop and pull it over the second loop. So taking my needle, pull it up and pull it over the second loop, and then I'm just do that one more time for the last stitch. Pull it over. And there we go. Now we have a little bit of a point at the top. I'm now just going to take my scissors and cut it. And you can remove your needle. And I just take the remaining yarn and pull through the last loop. So it's nice and secure. So I basically have a really long ribbon here. I'm going to weave in my ends. So I just have my darning needle here. And I'm gonna be completely honest, I don't really have a special way that I weave in the ends. I just recommend that you do this because if you don't, your work can come apart. So I usually just I'm just gonna go through the wrong side here and weave in my ends. When you're done with that, you can just cut off the excess ends. And now I'm just going to wet block this and then we're done. So this is what the bow looks like when it's done. I've been wearing it a lot just as a traditional bow tie, but you can wear it as well in your hair. Here I used my roommate's head to put it in her hair because I don't have thick hair like she does. I hope you guys decide to make this pattern too. If you do, please send me a picture on Instagram at Leftoverdinner. I would love to see your guys' recreations and how you style it. Please subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more tutorials or any other knitting or fiber arts related videos. But I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!